Hi, everyone. I wanted to do sort of a special study, I guess. As I was reading and studying the word, I came across this passage and really started digging into it. And I just wanted to share with you what I found. Um, let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 16, and verse 15. So, Revelation, chapter 16, verse 15. And it says, Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Now, looking at the Greek of this verse, it is accurately translated, but what really does that mean? That he keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Um, it really didn't seem to make sense to me without fully really understanding the times that this was written in the context that it was written. And with that in mind, I wanted to really go into a deeper dive on this. And first, let's look at a couple of verses in the Brit Hadashah itself in the New Testament. So let's go over to Luke chapter 22 and verse 4. Luke 22 and verse 4, it says, And he went his way, and he communed with the chief priests and captains, how he might betray him unto them. Okay. Notice the word captains there. And I want to go now to a couple of passages in Acts. In Acts chapter 4 and verse 1, it says, And they spake unto the people, the priest and the captain of the temple, and the Sadducees came upon them. So in Luke 22, we had this verse mentioning captains, and in Acts 4 in verse 1, we see the captain of the temple. If we go over to the next chapter in Acts chapter 5, verse 22, we see that now when the high priest and the captain of the temple and the chief priest heard these things, they doubted of them whereunto this would grow. So in all three of those passages, we see mention of this captain or the captain of the temple. And each one is talking about a man who's in charge. And the captain of the temple, when I started looking, was not really a military officer, but one in charge of the priest and the Levites. They sort of formed like the temple police and kept watch. We also see them spoken of in the Tanakh itself. So let's go to 2 Kings. In 2 Kings chapter 12 and verse 9. I'm going to read out of the King James here. But Yehoiada the priest took a chest and bored a hole in the lid of it, and he set it beside the altar. And on the right side, as one cometh into the house of the Lord, the priest that kept the door put therein all the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. So here we see there was a certain person called the priest that kept the door. If we go over to chapter 25 in 2 Kings, so 2 Kings 25 and verse 18, we see mentioned that, and the captain of the guard took Sariah, the chief priest, and Zephaniah, the second priest, and the three keepers of the door. So here we've got a captain of a guard. In Jeremiah chapter 20, in verse 1, when the Cohen, Pashur, the son of Emer, the chief official in the house of the Lord, heard Yirmiyahu prophesying these things, he had him flogged and put him in the stocks at the upper Benjamin gate of the house of Yah. So here we've got the chief official in the house of Yah. Nehemiah 11:11. Sariah, the son of Hiliaku, the son of Meshullam, the son of Zadok, the son of Mariot, the son of Ahitub, the supervisor of the house of God. Now, in the Tanakh, we see that it's mentioning, in English, the supervisor of the house, the chief official in the house, the captain of the guard, the priest. And so they're given these different titles, but they're in English. So the word captain or leader of the house of Elohim is actually Nagid Beit Ha-Elohim. We see it called an overseer, a captain of the house of Yah, a Pagid Nagid Beit Yahweh. We see him called a guardsman, and that one is Rav Tabachim, the great guardsman, Rav Tabachim, and that is in English is called captain of the guard there in 2 Kings 25 and 18. And then we see the priest that guards the money is Kohanim Shamri HaKesef. Now, before going any further into this, we need to look at what he was doing. And during the time of the temple, these priests or these Levites were divided into different turns to guard and protect the temple. They each had a time that they would guard and protect the temple. And a lot of times we call these watches. Now, Israel, like the Greeks and the Romans, divided the day into watches. Now, Israel only recognized, from what I've seen, 3 watches as seen in Scripture. One is called the beginning of the watches, the middle watch, and the morning watch. And these can be found in the word, I'm going to go to Lamentations 2 and 19. So we see Lamentations 2 and 19. Get up, cry out in the night at the beginning of every watch. Pour out your heart like water before the face of Yah. Lift up your hands to him for your lives and for the lives of your babies who are fainting away from hunger at every street corner. So here we have the beginning of every watch as one of the watches. In Judges chapter 7 and verse 19, Judges 7 and verse 19, we see, so Gideon and the 100 men that were with him came unto the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch, and they had but newly set the watch, and they blew the trumpets, and they broke the pitchers that were in their hands. Then we go into Exodus chapter 14 and verse 24. And it came to pass that in the morning watch that the Lord looked upon the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and the cloud that troubled the host of the Egyptians. So here we've got the morning watch. We also see the morning watch described in 1 Samuel chapter 11 and verse 11. The next day, Shaul divided the people into 3 companies. Then they entered the camp of the Ammoni during the morning watch, and they kept attacking until the heat of the day, until those who remained were so scattered that no 2 of them were left together. Now, according to these Jewish historical records, the beginning watch would last from sunset to about 10 p.m. And remember, this is the beginning watch because the beginning of the day begins at sunset. So sunset to 10 p.m. is the beginning of the watch. The middle watch would be from about 10 p.m. to about 2 a.m. And then the morning watch would be from around 2 a.m. to sunrise. And then after the Romans rise to power, we see the number of watches increased. In history, we see that increased to about 4, because we see in Matthew chapter 14 and verse 25, it says, and in the 4th watch of the night, Yeshua Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. So we know that when the Romans historically came there, that we see that there's an increase in the number of watches. So with these 4 watches, they were called by numerical order or by the terms even midnight, cock crowing, and morning. And these ended at 9 p.m., midnight, 3 a.m., and 6 a.m. And by Yeshua's day, the night watches had been set in the temple. By day and night, it was the duty of the Levites to keep guard at the gates to prevent something unclean from entering. And to them, the duties of the temple police were also entrusted under the command of an official or leader or captain. In Acts chapter 4 and verse 1, and as they spoke unto the people, the priest and the captain of the temple and the Sadducees came upon them. So this person is called the captain of the temple in the Brit Hadashah. And in Jewish writings, he's chiefly called the man of the temple. So sometimes you might hear him called the captain of the temple or the man of the temple. And his office had a great responsibility, especially considering the close proximity of the Antonia fortress of the temple. Now, the Antonia fortress, for those who haven't been to Israel, was a military barrack that was built around 19 BC by King Herod. It was built at the eastern end of the Great Wall and of the northeastern side of the city near the Temple Mount and the pools of Bethesda. And so that is it. If you want to, you can just Google Antonio Fortress and it will bring up a picture of that. I can actually show you a model. Let me share right here. Here is just a model that is on the internet that I just very quickly pulled from my notes. And I'm just going to share this image. So here you can see in my notes that this is just the Antonia Fortress here. At the end, this is a model of the temple. You can see the wall there. And then here is the Antonia Fortress. And that's just, you can Google that image. This is one that was taken from the Israel Museum. Now, what's interesting about these watches is at night, the guards were placed into 24 stations about the gates and the courts. And of these, 21 were occupied by the Levites alone. The other innermost 3 were jointly by the priest and the Levites. And each guard consisted of 10 men, so that in all 240 Levites and 30 priests were on duty every night. And the temple guards were relieved by day, but not during the night. And which the Romans, divided into 4, but Jews, did it in 3 watches. The 4th really being the morning watch. Now we get to the interesting part. And I know this is just a lot of history, but we see how this all comes to play with the verse. So during the night, the captain of the temple would make his rounds. And on his approach, the guards had to rise and salute him in a specific manner or particular manner, whatever it was. I don't really know. And they did not sleep in their holy garments, but they really undressed and they would fold them and put them under their heads. And they covered themselves with their own dresses, their own garments. And the main reason was if legal defilement happened to one of them, he would go out and proceed in the circuit that went under the temple, and the candles flamed on either side until he arrived at the mikveh. And even in Josephus's writings, and then in the Talmud, we see that the heads of the families often reclined on couches along the part of the Beit Moked, which is, it was lawful for them to sit down. And so the elder priests might lie on the floor, having wrapped their garments beside them, while the younger priests would keep watch. And any guard that was found asleep on duty was beaten, or his garments were actually set on fire as a punishment. Now let's think about this. With this background of what the temple service was like, we now understand the context that is around this passage in Revelation. And with that background knowledge, we can now understand a little bit more with the verse in Revelation 16:15. says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keepeth his garment, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Because the guard that was found sleeping was left naked, and his garments were burnt. And there were also Levites whose lot it was to take the ashes from the altar. And according to the Talmud, he gained the lot to take the ashes from the altar and took them, and they would say to him, be careful that you touch not the vessels till you sanctify your hands and feet from the laver. They would have to, dip their hands and feet in the laver to cleanse them. And remember, if you touch the ashes, it would render them unclean. So he that took the ashes from the altar would rise up early and he would bathe before the captain of the temple came. And there's even actually a psalm that was written during that night watch. Psalms 134, verse 1. It says, behold, bless ye the Lord, and all you servants of the Lord, which by night stand in the house of the Lord. Lift up your hands in the sanctuary and bless the Lord. The Lord made heaven and earth. Bless thee out of Zion. So these watchmen who were doing this at night never knew when the captain would come. They never knew when the captain of the temple was going to walk around. Even in the Mishnah, the question was asked, in what hour did the captain come? And the answer was always, at all times, were not equal. Sometimes he would come at the cockcrow, or near to it, or before it, or after it. The captain came and he knocked for them, and they would open up the door. And he would say, let whoever is washed come and let him cast the lots. And within the Tanakh, there are even other references to these watches. Just a couple of them were Proverbs 8:34. How happy is the person who listens to me, who watches daily at my gates and waits outside my doors. And Psalm 63:7. When I remember you on my bed and meditate on you in the night watches. So in the Brit Hadashah, in the New Testament, we see many references to the watchman. And with this understanding of the temple times and the context, we can understand a little bit more about these verses. So I want to go over to Luke chapter 12. And in Luke chapter 12, verse 35, it says, be dressed for action and have your lamps lit, like people waiting for their master's return after a wedding feast, so that when he comes and knocks, they will open the door for him without delay. Happy the slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. Yes, I will tell you, he will put on his work clothes, seat them at the table, and come and serve them himself, whether it is late at night or early in the morning. If this is how he finds them, those slaves are happy. But notice this, no house owner would let his house be broken into if he knew when the thief was coming. You too, be ready, for the Son of Man will come when you are not expecting him. So looking at this verse in the Greek, it actually uses the words second and third watch. In verse 38, where it's talking about whether it's late at night or early in the morning here. And that's if you're looking at it in the Greek. Let's go over to Mark chapter 13. In Mark chapter 13, verse 29, in the same way, when you see all these things happening, you are to know that the time is near, right at the door. Yes, I tell you that this people will certainly not pass away before all these things happen. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will certainly not pass away. However, when that day and hour will come, no one knows, not the angels in heaven, not the Son, just the Father. So stay alert, be on your guard, for you do not know when the time will come. It's like a man who travels away from his home, puts his servants in charge, each with his own task, and tells the doorkeeper to stay alert. So stay alert, for you do not know when the owner of the house will come, whether it will be in the evening, midnight, cock crowing, or morning. You do not want him to come suddenly and find you sleeping. And what I say to you, I say to everyone, stay alert. Now, notice there, in chapter 13, in verse 35, in the King James, it says, watch ye therefore, for you know not when the master of the house cometh, at evening, midnight, or the cock crowing, or in the morning. Those are the exact phrases that reference when the captain of the temple comes. We're in the temple. We are the temple. We're not in the temple. We are the temple. Our body is a picture of the temple. We are to keep our temple undefiled and clean. We should be watching for his return. We do not know when Yeshua returns. For if he comes and we're asleep, just like the captain of the temple would do, he would burn their clothes and then wake us up. It will be too late then. And here's another parable I think we often miss. Let's go to John chapter 13. In John chapter 13, I'm going to start in verse 1. It was just before the festival of Passover, and Yeshua knew that the time had come for him to pass from this world to the Father. Having loved his own people in the world, he loved them to the end. And they were at supper, and the adversary had already put the desire to betray him in the heart of Yehuda ben Shimon from Kiryat. And Yeshua was aware that the Father had put everything in his power, and that he had come from Elohim and was returning to Elohim. So he rose from the table, removed his outer garments, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And then he poured some water in a basin, and he began to wash the feet of the Talmudim and wiped them off with a towel wrapped around him. And he came to Shimon Kepha, who said to him, Lord, you are washing my feet. And Yeshua answered him, you don't understand yet what I'm doing, but in time you will understand. No, said Kepha, you will never wash my feet. And Yeshua answered him, if I don't wash you, you will have no share with me. Lord, Shimon Kepha replied, not only my feet, but my hands and head too. And Yeshua said to him, a man who has had a bath doesn't need to wash except his feet, for his body is already clean. And you people are clean, but not all of you. So here we have Shimon Kepha, who's about to deny Yeshua. He's, think about Yeshua. Death is coming up, and here he's about to deny Yeshua. And Yeshua was showing him a picture, a parable. It was no doubt that Yeshua was referring to the temple guards in his reply to Peter when he says, he that is washed needeth not save to wash only his feet, but he is clean everywhere else. In John 13 and verse 10, he's like, when you look at that, and Yeshua said, any man who's had a bath doesn't need to wash except his feet because his body's already clean. But now we can truly understand that when John Yochanan said, behold, I come as a thief, and blessed is he who watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked. He's referring to, being watchmen, as these priests are to be there watching. We are today's watchmen. And with the turmoil of events that are surrounding us, that are going on in the world these last days, it's imperative that we watch carefully, that we do not and don't become weary in watching, that we need to stay alert and stay awake to see the danger that's coming from afar and be ready to defend that which is holy or that which is to be set apart. Isaiah 62 and 6 says, for I posted watchmen on your walls, Jerusalem. They will never fall silent, neither by day nor by night. You who call on Yah, give yourselves no rest. So as things are happening in this world, remember we are watchmen. and we are called to be watchmen, and we are, want to find ourselves being like these priests who are on duty, that we don't know when the captain of the guard is coming, but to make ourselves ready. Don't let us be found sleeping, and let our garments be caught on fire, lest we be naked, and our shame is there for all. So, sometimes when you're reading a verse, something really catches your eye. And this one is one that really, caught my eye as I was reading it, and really didn't understand. So I really sort of went into a dive on it. Hopefully, it will make a little more sense to you as you're reading the scripture. And I hope you enjoy learning about the captain of the temple.